Kayden, thank you for stopping by to talk with me. For those of you who don't know, I'm Seth Adrian Romo. I host the website Pages and Panels, and today I'm here with Kayden Phoenix. Kayden has an incredibly impressive background. So a little bit about Kayden. Kayden is a trailblazing queer Chicana writer and director from Boyles Heights, California. Her films have made waves on the film festival circuit, with her latest project getting attraction from CineQuest and Outfest, and even snagged by Gunpowder and Sky's horror platform Alter, which boasts over 3 million subscribers. She's dedicated to uplifting Latina talent. Kayden founded the Chicana Directors Initiative, a nonprofit supporting Latina directors and cinematographers. She's been recognized by Panavision's new filmmaker program, was a semifinalist in the first Universal Animation Writers Program, is a Film Fatales Fellowship finalist for Stowe Story Lab, and a 2024 Stowe Narrative Lab recipient. In addition to that, if that already wasn't impressive enough, Kayden also made history by creating the first Latina team superhero team in comic book history with her graphic novels A la Brava, which McNeil Publishing picked up in 2024. She's also just launched a new series, Princess Academia, and is diving into action graphic novels with co-creator Ghazal Omar through Artillery Network. Her latest comic she wrote, a three-part series of a Chicana vampire gang, Lipstick Clica, was slated by Sony Music Entertainment. So quite an impressive background, Kayden. You're
Thank
very
you.
busy.
Gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll dive right in. I know you and I have talked before. We've talked about sort of your background, but let's kind of get into, the comic book side of things. I know as per our last discussion, you enter the comic book world after creating a script for a movie, and then you were asked the question, "Where's the comic?" So you
Yes.
then were prompted to make the comic for your hero,
Mhm.
Jalisco. Can you talk about how that was getting your comic published? I know you went to publishers, but ultimately you ended up publishing on your own. What was that process like? How did you manage that sort of bar to entry, especially when I know publishers sometimes make it difficult, or you did it on your own?
Yeah, so I only tried, so they're really cool people. The publishers I spoke to were really amazing. Fan-based press offered any help or anything in that sort. Boom. I was talking to Boom for a little bit as well. And then I just decided, and I did apply to Image, right? Because Image is creator owned, which is something that
Mhm.
I've always wanted. With the other ones, it's not creator owned, right? Because they take it, and at the time, Boom was had first look with Netflix, and they were getting stuff off the ground. Like they're really
Mhm.
amazing. And so I decided to do creator owned route. So I did do a little pitch deck of Jalisco, the one you're speaking of, to Image. I did a little the pitch deck, etc. And then like literally the next day they turned around and said no, right?
Mhm.
Because of the type of people that control Image, I'm not necessarily the demographic, nor is the content of my comic books, I guess. And so I was just really mad. It's just like they didn't even read it. It's just like here's the Latino superhero, part of the Latino superhero team. And they're like, no, we don't want you. We want our white boy comics kind of deal, even though they didn't say that. But that's what I took from it. And so I was like, great, I'll do it myself then. And that's pretty much it. Like it was already done. You just learn a lot of there's comic book creators always help you and they'll, help refer you to the right paths. But everything is on Google as well. You look up publishing places like print houses. And so there's Mixam.com, which is the US based. The one I use a lot as well is Print Ninja, which is overseas. If you can wait the extra 2 to 3 months to get the
Mhm.
copies, it's cheaper. But again, it's just if you can afford that time in between. And so that's what it is. They give you online quotes and then you just compare it. You do the PPUs, just price per unit. So does it make sense if you get X amount of, say, 2,000 copies? It brings it down to this unit price. What are you going to sell it for? What's your profit margin, right? Because at the end of the day, it is a business.
Mhm.
And so you just run numbers and what you want to sit on, because I do sit on a lot of books, of course, because I get a higher unit amount for to lower my PPU.
Mhm.
But it's just what it's a business at the end of the day. And so what makes the most sense for you is pretty much kind of how I decided how to do things.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that Image didn't want to take on the book, especially considering that, if you look at a lot of titles on the stands, it
Yeah.
isn't a question whether or not, readers will want to read about a character of color, a character of specific background, female led. The challenge is more where is the authentic voice? And I
Right.
think that's where it's impressive that you have created your own superhero universe. You've told this in your own authentic voice. And so I
Mhm.
really applaud that. It's a shame that you couldn't get through to a big publisher, but I think it gives a lot of it gives a lot of oomph to the fact that you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
So when you kind of talk about that getting off the ground, that initial funding that is sometimes daunting to indie
Yeah.
comic book creators, especially someone who's going to see this interview is going to say, I want to be like Kayden when I grow up.
Yeah.
How is that funding challenge maneuvered? Kickstarter? What typically is the best approach in your experience?
I like Kickstarter. I like Kickstarter for comics because they have their own comic section. There's some really
Hmm.
good ones. Seed and Spark is really great. I support our story if you're Latina based. Like there's some really great crowdfunding campaign sites. For myself, for Kickstarter, for in regards to comics, I use that one because I mean they have that. They also have like a diversity fund as well. So Kickstarter's backers, Kickstarters, I don't know, their sponsors will actually also put money in as well. So it's a nice little extra bonus. But that's its own little world that you have to learn, right? How to do crowdfunding campaigns. But you tell people a week before, hey, I have this coming out, da, 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 and it's just you post every single day, and you're just happy, so happy and excited that you made some money, and you're like 25%, now you're 50%, etc. Right? Because if you're excited, they're excited, but it's also like you said, it's like, why do I care? Where's authenticity? But at the end of the day, it's why do I care? Where's the heart? Because you're competing against everybody else's, campaigns. And so why should I support yours instead of this person's? And you had to find that in your pitch, right? First Latino superhero team, all Latino artist, and it's this. All of mine for mine was easier because mine for me had more heart because mine are social injustices,
Hmm.
and so it's a different angle than here. Let me just save Metropolis. Let me save Gotham. So that was mine because that's the way I wrote it and that's what I wanted. Like I knew that from the offset before I started doing the crowdfunding, but that's how I differentiated myself in regards to the superheroes that came before. Everyone is different, of course, so it's all fine. But you find out your why, and then your reason why is generally at the heart of it as to why it's important to you. If it's important to you, it might be important to somebody else, and probably is. So that's all I did.
That's amazing.
Okay.
And I know for Jalisco, there's the
Mhm.
coverage of missing women in Mexico as the social justice topic that you have. And it's been
Yeah.
great that you've covered different discussions as you're working on your titles, aside from the social justice angle. How do you stay motivated in those initial days? Because obviously there's the story behind it, but like you said, it's a business. So how did you keep that motivation going, considering that you went into comics from directing film, so it's not like you didn't already have a career or profession. You decided to dive into this. How did you keep that motivation since you were essentially kind of adding an addition to your career?
It's part of the same backstory of what I want. I don't know if backstory's wrong. It's part of the same desire of what I want, and that's just equality at the end of the
Mhm.
day. And so everything I do has that as the backbone. So writer, director, what do? I put Latinos in the forefront. I put Latinos in the back as well as in crew. Same thing with comics. I put Latinos in the forefront. My lead, my villain, my supporting, those are all Latinos. I put people in the back, behind the pages on this one, right? All my Latino artists. It is just a push for equality. Like CDI, which you know we're gonna get to, right? Latinos, my nonprofit, it's all about Latinos working in the industry. And so it's the same beat going through. It's just in a different category. And so for me, that's easy
Mhm.
because it's still going forward with my same thing with my same beat, as. And so that part is very easy in that because it's my end goal of what I see as my end goal. And the end goal still remains the same regardless. So,
That's awesome. And I know you're very intentional with who you hire. Oftentimes, when I hear discussions, panels on diversity,
mm,
um, the discussion is always, let's talk about why it matters. And while that is very critical, what I think is more impressive is you're taking it a step further and not just having a discussion of let's talk about why it matters, but you're talking about what can be done about it. So, can you talk a little bit about the talent that you bring in? I know you, like you said earlier, you're
yeah,
you're very particular with who you hire, who you're wanting to share in the voice and the discussion in these comics. Can you talk more about that intention of the other creators that you're bringing to tell these stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So Evelyn Gore is really amazing. She's a comic book artist. She does Kim and Kim. She does the Archie comics as well. Veronica and Kim. So really amazing. She was the penciler for Lokita and for Santa, which are of the prettiest of the books as me, but subjectively. But all of my artists are really amazing. I have animators on some other ones. So Angelina Gonzalez is the she does animation, but she did comic. She's a penciler for Jalisco, Latina superhero, and Druka, Chicana superhero. And then same thing, like they all my colorists, like they all working. They're all really amazing. Um, and what they do, and this literally the same thing. It's the same cause, right? It's what they want. Like I don't need to pitch a Latino superhero. They understand why it's important. So that's very nice and
Mhm.
easy. But if I had to pitch them and explain to them, they probably wouldn't be the right fit for the job regardless. But it's just something like it's a nice collaboration. We all understand what we're there for. We understand what our roles are. And so it's a nice community that I built or that we've all built together.
Yeah, and you have an enormous amount of series now. So you have the full team. Each team
Mhm.
member has their own story.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know that kind of leads to something I've heard you talk about in other discussions, is how you sort of leverage that in comic books, pretty much anything is possible, right? You're not limited to a production budget, costumes,
Yeah.
but in other discussions, I've heard you talk about that sort of democracy of storytelling.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit more about that and how you've sort of used that to not only tell stories you want to tell, cover
Mhm.
social justice topics, but also just create worlds that you want to do, that you're not limited by because of someone overseeing or a publisher saying you have to do things a certain way. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so that's the greatest part about self-publishing is you don't have a boss, right? I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm my own boss, which is really nice. If you do great, it's because of you. If you do bad, it's also because of you. And it's something to keep in mind, at all times. But at the end of the day, you don't have a boss, so you don't have someone saying, no, take that out, no, put this in, this is what sells. You choose what you want, and whether it's for sales, for commercialability, or it's just because you want to do it, that's fine too. I'm big on storytelling reflects democracy. So what we see in the news, what we see in the media is pretty much how we live here, right? Like I have talks at schools and I do this thing like why is representation important, right? Really basic stuff that we all know why. But
Hmm.
why does it really break down as to why it's important? Is because and these are literally high school, elementary schools, et cetera, that I speak to with. So, a little bit more adolescent speaking, but it's that say you're going cross country with your friends, right? They go to this little town that's never seen a Latino kid before,
Hmm.
and it's just one of those you're like, okay, so they never seen your skin color, but they've seen you on Netflix. And
Hmm.
Netflix has narcos. So you're a drug dealer, Narcos Mexico. So you're a drug dealer once more. We have On My Block. So you're a convict, right? You're a gangbanger. You're a cholo. You are all these horrible negative stereotypes. And then they see you, right? And so how do they think? How are you perceived? It's exactly that. Storytelling reflects democracy. That is how you're going to be seen. They don't think you're safe. They may follow you into the bathroom. They may do all these extra things to you because of how you are seen on TV, because you are seen on media. So it does reflect democracy. Now they saw you as a superhero, they saw you as a princess, they saw you as anything, a judge, an astronaut, right? Maybe they might think of you differently when you walk in just so you can have your food or just to go pump gas, right? You're just literally living as a person as you should be. And so that's something that I always keep in the back of my mind of course, we're just people. That is
Hmm.
it. I've always seen people. I'm from East LA. Like I've seen everyone in my community as just a person because we are. And so media says I'm not, but I'm here to disagree. And so that's part of, the part of this job as an entrepreneur, as a storyteller, is get a correct story out there. It is fictional, obviously, but it is a story where we're not negative people, we're not negative stereotypes.
No, I agree. And I think it's always important to remember that, you know,
Mhm.
like you said, people are people and
Yeah.
there's a difference between a fueled level of hatred that individuals can have, and there's
Mhm.
also ignorance. where if, like you said, there aren't stories out there that represent, Latinos, Latinas, anybody in a positive light, that's all they know. And there's no justification of that, of course, but
Yeah.
it's great that you're doing something about that in the storytelling that you have, where you're now showcasing
Mhm.
there's all these positive roles that anyone can be,
Correct.
princess, hero, superhero,
Yeah.
all of which are very limited, or even in other media, whenever Latinos, Latinas are presented as superheroes, it's always very much confined to a specific culture
Yeah.
that's very either watered down or very, again, stereotyped.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's great that you're doing something about it. And I know you talk to students. You have titles for all ages.
Correct.
Can you talk more about what you have for respective demographics for people who learn
Mhm.
more about you and say, I want to get something for my kid or I want to read something for myself? You have
Absolutely.
a range of titles. Which are your favorite to, I know they're all great, but which are your favorite to kind of share with different demographics?
So, All Ages, my newest one that you mentioned was Princess Academia, and that
Hmm.
is Native and Latino princesses. They're each origin stories, how they got the name and their power. They actually do have little magical powers, so whatever's in their eye is their power.
Oh,
And
that's
I
cool.
borrowed that from anime because anime is amazing. But
Hmm.
at the very end, they meet at the school, Princess Academia. They become the Majestics, right? It's like a clique, very like Harry Potter. So they're based on their cliques. And they end up realizing there's a curse on the school. A princess disappears every single night. So they need to break the curse and they come together, try to figure it out. But otherwise are each individual stories. So Mashika is my Aztec princess. Nobi is my space princess. Allura is my witch princess. Macabre is my death princess. And Swan is my water princess. And so this is all ages, meaning elementary school. So once they can start reading, it's totally fine. They can, it's not like a board book, as they call them, but it's a graphic novel, very nice, easy read, and they learn courage and bravery and very simple themes that are very valuable at the same time. So
Hmm.
those are my all ages elementary school options, and then older, 7 and older are superheroes and everybody else, but 7 and older is for my superheroes because they have social injustices. So the themes are a little bit darker in regards to what the superheroes tackle, but again, it's origin stories, how they got the name and their power, and then they become a team as well called A la Brava. And that's the first Latina superhero team in comic book history.
That's amazing. Now you also have the artillery network that you're
Mhm.
working on as well. Can you share a
Yes.
little bit more about that?
Yes. So after you graduate from superheroes, you become an adult. Although superheroes are good for adults too, but you become an adult that can do more mature content. And so it's
Hmm.
Artillery Network. It is very action-packed, girl, female forward, of course, like always, but a little bit heavier, very heavy in content, more pulp and more like Tarantino-esque. And one's called Pimp Killer. It's
Hmm.
exactly what you think it is. She goes after the pimps because cops aren't doing anything to protect the girls. Another one is 357 Magnum Opus. That's a
Hmm.
three-part trilogy of our bounty hunters. And so it's a group of bounty hunters, and every book covers one of those three bounty hunters. So it's really fun. That one we're wrapping up this year. The third one comes out this year. The next book comes out in a month. And then, or we have one shot, which is Pagan Valley. And that is our really bad gambler. She has poker debts. And she has a really wild, crazy night in LA with her best friends trying to get the money back before the loan sharks get her and the Russian mobs takes her and all this extra stuff. So it's just a fun, wild night.
That's awesome. And I did read 357 Magnum. It was very fun. The action
Yeah.
sequences were really good. And especially for me on a personal note, as a
Mhm.
dad of a little girl, I love the fact that all of your stories are woman-led.
Mhm.
Because I was talking to my wife the other day.
Mhm.
I forgot what movie we were watching, but oh, it was Dune.
Cool.
Great movie. But halfway through the movie, I leaned over and I asked her, and I said, "Do you ever get tired that the chosen one's always a guy?" And she's like, "All the time, all the time." And I was like, yeah, I felt like I was always aware of that, but
Yeah.
especially now that I have a daughter, I'm especially more conscious of
Yeah.
I want her to be able to see titles and see who she can be, what she can be. There's no limit to it. And I think the fact that you're creating these stories for girls to see that in themselves, but
Yeah.
also for boys to see that for girls as well and say, oh yeah, my friend or my sister or my cousin, she can be a superhero, and that's totally normal.
Yeah.
It's no longer this narrative of everyone has to kind of fit perfectly in a little box. And so I think it's really great that you're doing that. But this
Thank
leads to my next question.
you.
You're doing that, and I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
As someone who's out there publishing all these titles, what recommendations would you have for other creators, other publishers even, to sort of follow that lead that charge that you have in order to have better representation, more authentic voices? What can they do to sort of start bettering the work that they're doing and have that inclusiveness in a way that you think would be the best way?
Um, just to not be half-baked is one of them. Like you say, like in regards to Dune, that was cool that you noticed it. So Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner, right? The
Hmm.
chosen one was actually a girl. No, I know I read the movie, but like the chosen was the girl. But at the end of the day, it's like who was the lead throughout the whole movie was the
Hmm.
man. And so it's just like, okay, it's a cool little reveal, and I didn't mind that part. But it's people are half-baked in that they attempt to do well. At the end of the day, they don't. They reinstate like the status quo of
Hmm.
patriarchal oppression. And so it's just like if you're gonna do it right is one. And then two, if you're not gonna do it, just support it, right? And support it as well. For people that aren't necessarily storytellers or publishers or whatnot. But like you support and you're aware of it, which is great. But then you support it, you're like, okay, I don't want my girl to think like this. Good. I'm glad most people can't even get to that thought in the first place. And so it's just, and a lot of people do, a lot of the parents do actually buy it for their kids, right? Or for their niece or for their nephews, etc. Like they are aware of it. They say, I never had this growing up.
Hmm.
Just, right? All that is true. It's a fact that we don't have this because no one gave it to us since our first comic in like 1938. No one's given it to us. And so we can give it to ourselves. And that's the thing. So if you want to make a change, then be the change. And that's really it. And it's not like I didn't have publishers come up to me afterwards. Like I had Dark Horse, I had Scout. I had really cool people walk up to me afterwards, after when I've been going to the Comic Cons to publish me. But they wanted my film rights, my film TV rights. And like I said, I
Hmm.
had to keep those. And so, especially since I paid for literally everything, of course, they could have publishing, but nothing more. I did all the work. I paid for everything. And so why they get all my other rights, ancillary rights, now it makes no sense to me. And so, no, it does work. It does create change and does bring awareness. But they can do it themselves as well. They don't need to just take something that's already been done, like my stuff. They can hire somebody and get that done as well and do their version of it, which is really cool.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think it's amazing that they came to you after the fact, but like you said, it's a bummer that they're not doing it ahead of time.
Yeah.
But I think kind of shifting back to the business discussion,
Mhm.
you've been very particular about how you go about publishing, maintaining rights, especially in the comic book world. It's not uncommon for people to get screwed over out of rights, IP issues. You talked about holding on to film and TV rights, which of course makes the most sense because again, that's really where a lot of the big money can come from. Was that sort of part of your background? I believe you have a business degree, right? Is this also just like your entrepreneurial knack? How did you kind of maneuver that, considering that's one more step in addition to just getting the story out there, is how do you protect it? How did you sort of go about getting that information and all that?
I don't know. I just kind of think it's common knowledge, honestly. But I come from film and TV, and so where do people buy rights from is from books, right? So it's
Hmm.
kind of like the backwards part of it, I guess. But yeah, no, everything is just it's just IP. So because I made them into IP, like you can write a screenplay, it's not considered IP, but if you publish it online, if you do a book online, if you do a comic book, etc., if you make it tangible,
Hmm.
then now it's instantly IP and they can only license it, they can't own it, right? Like Sylvester Stallone does not own Rocky. He wrote the script out, got the
Hmm.
payment for that, and he got obviously an actor payment, but he'll never own Rocky, the Rocky
Hmm.
franchise, because he wrote out the screenplay and they bought the screenplay. So that's in film and TV land. But if he made a book about it, he would have owned it and he could have just licensed as opposed to purchase. And so it's just different. It's just business. It's just being business savvy, I guess. in that way. But no, it's extremely important. You should always know your rights of what you
Hmm.
have and such.
For sure. Now, you've gone on to work with other creators, like you said, Ghazal Omar. How was that building that network after the fact? You started from the idea, you created the comic, now you're
Mhm.
talking with other creators. What was that like? How did that work? Especially because people who are aspiring to make their comic books ultimately are going to end up, if they have it made, in that network. How was it sort of maneuvering that? What made you decide to sort of partner up, especially considering you've had to go it on your own for so long?
Yeah, it's really fun. It's a nice collaboration. She brings a lot to the table as well. So I'm very lucky that I have a really great writer and she has a really great mind as to what she wants to say and how to go about doing it. She
Hmm.
is, like I said, her stuff's a little bit more mature content. Her Tiller Network is more mature and fun. I'm not saying I'm not mature and fun, but I'm more kiddish, kidlandish, and more big world, like world building, right? Like princesses
Hmm.
and superheroes. She's much more grounded in the sense that it's happens in real life. Here's a real bounty hunter, here's a pimp dealer, right? Like real deal stuff that are extremes, but are just but are really full and like juicy. And so she brings a lot to the table, and I'm very fortunate that I have someone like her. We have the same mindset in regards to get it made, get into film or TV. Like that was we were already on the same page on that, so it was really
Hmm.
nice as well. And so same thing, it's just a really nice collaboration to get to work with her.
Yeah, and I think what's even better is you also have now a range of titles. You
Yeah.
know, you have all ages, so anyone um, that comes to your booth, because you go to C2E2, you go to San Diego Comic-Con,
Yeah.
you're able to say, hey, if they have a kid with them, you could say, hey, I have an all ages title. Hey, I have something for you too. Hey, you like action movies? Here's what we have. How were you able to leverage those conventions early on, especially the big ones? Obviously,
Yeah.
you had the material to pitch to people, but
Mhm.
how was that sort of going into it initially, and how is it? How do you, looking back on it, how is it now?
I really enjoy it. I think it's always been fun. I used to always go to San Diego Comic Con just as a I don't know what to call it, as a convention goer, just because
Hmm.
it was Comic Con, right? And so you go every year, and this is back when we had the entertainment industry was there. So
Hmm.
I just really enjoyed it, just being on the other side of the table. Now I'm just, now I'm stuck, I'm static on my table. But you get to see all the cool people walk by with all their cosplays and everything. So you kind of get a little bit of it. But it's fine. I came from marketing, so I've always been at like big conferences and just around a lot of people
Hmm.
after college. And so not much of a difference. Do your pitches with your three key points, etc. Like I've done that. I've done promotional marketing. And so not much of a difference. Now this is on my own content, of course. And so, but I've always enjoyed people. They light up, they smile, right? It's just here's something new, whether they buy it or not is irrelevant. It's just here's something that is different. They can maybe change your mindset, right? Like you can be Latino superhero, you can be Asian superhero, you can be any superhero. I really don't care. But you should be. You should be able to think. You should have the superhero mindset, right? Which is like
Hmm.
my mission statement is to give a superhero mindset to diversity, any diverse person, because they don't give it to us. And that's the main reason why. And so it's unfortunate that we're, our media is so oppressive and they just want to perpetuate the status quo of like a white male. And so that's just something I've enjoyed, right? Because I mean, you see all types of all walks of life there at the Comic Cons. And so I've always liked it. It's not nice picking up all the heavy boxes left and right. As the years continue, I have more and more boxes, whatever. But it's part of it. It just goes with it.
Yeah, and I think you know, as we kind of talk about, you going to conventions and how, you're creating that superhero mindset for everyone, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's a real shame that companies aren't realizing that there is a market for the stories that you're creating, stories that are, again, authentic in narrative, authentic in, artwork, design, all of that. Uh, because first of all, there's just money to be made, but in addition to that, there's also communities that can be built. And I know I've seen on your Instagram, um, you'll have people come to your table cosplaying now. and you'll have people just so excited to meet you. How has that been knowing you went from, again, the idea to now you have people who are bringing their kids cosplaying? How has that been like, especially that level of community that people are not only seeing themselves, but they want to also portray characters that you created?
Yeah, it's a really nice honor, honestly. I think it's really sweet of them. That they've caught on to like the character, right? They want to be the character, the superhero. And so it's a great compliment more than anything. But it's something that they can relate to, or same thing. It says here's a superhero that looks like them that has their same skin tone, etc.
Mhm.
That may be going through the same prejudice as them. And so it's really nice that they accept it and they want to live part of it and help bring it to life. And so I'm grateful for them.
Love that. So going forward,
Yeah.
you've obviously, like I said, you've created a range of titles, which is great.
Mhm.
How is innovation impacting your career going forward? What are you looking at 5, 10 years from now? I know you also excuse me, established the Chicana Directors Initiative. Can you talk about future plans, not just related to comics, but just in general? You have a lot going on, so I imagine you're very busy.
I try to be. So Chicana Directors Initiative is a nonprofit for Latina
Hmm.
directors and Latina cinematographers, and it's the same thing. Just to get equality, we create a firm base, and so we can break into the studio system, right? Because we do need to have the right credits and content to reach, which is fine. We're working on that. That's what we're
Hmm.
doing. But we do need to break into studio system. Otherwise, we'll just always maintain as like independent
Hmm.
creators. And so that's something that we strive to do. Been going on since like 2019, so 5 years now, roughly. We have roughly 200 members. Really cool. We're very grassroots in all things. We're LA based. Use free membership, right? Like same thing. I'm not gatekeeping in any way. It's if you want to come, cool, show up. If you don't, that's on you, right? I can't help you if you don't want to show up. But same, it's a really nice community. Everyone's helpful. We have really great sponsors here and there. They'll lend equipment to us
Hmm.
and whatnot. But everything just to take away a no. We have our fireside chats with really cool Latina producers, Latina industry members as well. So that's that. Overall, in 5, 10 years, I'll probably have a production company. I want to be like a Reese Witherspoon type deal where you have a production company, you create content that you want to create, you sell it, you go and make another production company, and you just keep going. And so that's kind of the goal between myself, a couple of CDI members, as well as Giselle.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Not just that you aren't, like you said, you aren't gatekeeping knowledge, but you're bringing people up with you. You're wanting to have all these aspirations and big goals, which I think is amazing because again, you've done so much in what, the span of 5 years already. And I know you had career before that, but I know you established the initiative in 2019. Um, so for people who hear about this, who read the write-up, they say, I want to support either the initiative or the comics. How can people support your work, support what you're doing, follow you? What's the best way for people to kind of get involved and kind of, you know, dive into the stories or, like I said, support the initiatives?
Great. So Instagrams are the easiest. I'll do the Instagrams first.
Hmm.
The nonprofit is Chicana Directors Initiative, directors with plural, but Chicana Directors Initiative, all one word. My pages are Latina Superheroes, plural on superheroes, and then the other one is Latina Princesses, plural on princesses. And then everything runs the same for the websites, latinasuperheroes.com, latinaprincesses.com. It sends you to the same website. And
Hmm.
then on the nonprofit side is ChicanaDirectorsInitiative.org.
Perfect. And I'll be sure to when this gets posted, I'll be sure to put all the links in there so people can
Right.
follow. Uh, but Kayden, thank you so much. As always, it's great to talk with you. You're incredibly inspirational. I will definitely say that. Not just in the impressive amount of work that you've done, but just the fact that you have all these works going and you're just killing it, which is awesome. So congratulations, and I definitely look forward to seeing where things go next. And I'm sure next time we talk, there's going to be even more amazing things to highlight. So thank you for taking time to talk with me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Comic-Con San Diego, because it's called Comic-Con.
Yes.
We're going to have a toy actually
Oh, cool.
for pre-order because I won't be ready by then, but I'll be doing that announcement soon.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, there you go. You're gonna have a toy. That's even better.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thank you again, Kaden, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so much. Bye bye.